Gas prices are spiraling.
Sticker shock at the pump.
Gas prices on the rise, no doubt about it.
Look at this, $8.71 for a gallon of gas.
In the last 3 weeks, we've watched the national average jump nearly $1 a gallon.
That is the fastest 3-week spike ever.
Prices are rising so fast, truck drivers are struggling to keep up.
Americans are now paying $500 million extra in gas and diesel every day.
You're talking about almost $1,000 just to fill up the tank.
Some of the drivers we spoke with tell me it's forcing real decisions about where they go and how often.
There is no sign on the horizon that we're going to get any relief. And unless something changes, like right now, prices are expected to reach upwards of $7 to $10 per gallon by midsummer.
These prices are only going to rise.
There's not really any telling how high we will go.
Now, if you want to understand why everyone thinks that motorcycles are the ultimate gas-saving hack, you have to look back at 1973. During the first oil crisis, the average American car was lucky to get 13 miles per gallon, while a mid-sized motorcycle was easily pulling 50 or 60 miles per gallon. Back then, switching to two wheels meant a 400% increase in efficiency. It was a no-brainer. And as a result, the last gas crisis led to the most explosive growth our sport has ever seen. But that was 50 years ago. Fast forward to 2026, your average modern hybrid SUV like a RAV4 or CR-V is cruising at 40 miles per gallon while hauling 5 people and a week of groceries in climate-controlled comfort. Now look at the average modern motorcycle. A standard 600 or 700cc Sport Standard is lucky to hit 45 miles per gallon. Factor in the cost of high-performance tires that might only last 3,000 miles if you're lucky, and $1,500 service intervals that would make a German luxury car blush, and the math falls apart. In 1973, a bike was a financial escape hatch. In 2026, most bikes are just an expensive way to get wet when it rains. Except for this one. While the rest of the industry was chasing horsepower and high-revving theater, Honda did something weird. They took half of a fuel-sipping car engine and put it in a motorcycle frame and created the only machine that actually recreates the 1970s efficiency gap for the modern world. This is the Honda NC750X, and to understand why this bike works where others fail, you have to look at what's behind that black and white Stormtrooper-inspired bodywork. Now, most middleweight motorcycles are designed for pure, joyful, recreational play, high revs and melodious exhaust notes and canyon-chasing prowess. The NC750X doesn't do that, and I don't think it really wants to. So what happens if we leave the city behind and go up the canyon? You know, click the bike into gear, and off we go. Only we click a button. So it feels a little bit like arming a very sensible missile. But if you ride motorcycles, your first thought will be when you get on this thing is, it is not a powerhouse, especially compared to a lot of the other middleweight motorcycles out there. And if you want to take over shifting and put it into full manual mode and ride it like a flappy paddle supercar with the up and down shift buttons on the side, you're going to find yourself bumping up against the rev limiter a lot. If you're looking for a top-end rush, this bike is not that bike. Honda literally took the 1.3-liter engine from a Honda Jazz, or the Fit for us here in the United States, and essentially cut it in half. Well, no, not literally. That's just something YouTubers like me say to try to get clicks. I mean, we got to play the game. But they did involve their automotive division. They kept the automotive-like bore and stroke. They kept the automotive-grade pistons and connecting rods. And in fact, if you go digging through a Honda parts catalog, you're going to find that the piston rings and a whole bunch of other stuff inside this motorcycle engine share the exact same part numbers as the car. What does that mean for you as a rider? Well, first, the red line is at a boring Honda Civic-inspired 6,500 RPM. On a typical bike, that's where the fun starts. But on this, it's where the rev limiter starts limiting the revs. But because it's a car engine, it's built for efficiency and torque, not peak horsepower. It's designed to run at low stress for hundreds of thousands of miles. A lot of components in the engine do two jobs. The oil pump is driven by the balancer shaft, and the water pump is driven by the camshaft. It's simple, it reduces friction and wear. It's efficient. I mean, it's basically immortal. Now, since prices at the pump are climbing faster than my heart rate on a track day, Guessing you're getting tired of subsidizing oil companies just to go get a bag of coffee. So let's talk about the MoonCool TK1. This is the I'm never buying premium fuel again starter pack. It arrives almost entirely built, which is great because I have things to do. It has a 500-watt motor that peaks at 1,000 watts. That's the punch you need to actually get up some of those steep hills. And look at this storage. With the free front and rear baskets, this is more than just an e-bike, it's a folding pickup truck. I can fit a week's worth of groceries or whatever else I may need to transport across town. The real tech here is the rear differential. Usually trikes handle like a refrigerator on shopping cart wheels, but the rear differential allows the rear wheels to rotate at different speeds so you can actually get around corners while the thing stays planted. It's plenty fast. It has a 48 volt, 15 amp lithium ion battery that gives you enough range to make this thing a viable means of getting around town. When you get where you're going, hit the parking brake so it doesn't wander off, or you can just fold the whole thing down and tuck it into a corner. So stop letting gas prices dictate your life. This is faster, it is a whole lot cheaper, it carries a ton of stuff, and it's a lot more entertaining than sitting in your car in traffic. So hit the link below, scan the QR code, get your garage at TK1. All right, let's get back to that NC750. On a typical bike, you're replacing tires every few months if you commute, but because the NC makes its power so low and smoothly, owners are seeing double the tire life. And then, because that engine is tilted so far forward, it leaves a massive vacuum where a traditional bike stores its fuel. And Honda being Honda did something brilliant with that space. They gave us the Frunk. It's a 23-liter weather-sealed trunk right between your knees. For a commuter, this is fantastic. It'll swallow most full-face helmets, which means that when I park, I'm not that guy carrying a helmet around like a bowling ball. But here's the best part for the security conscious. It's literally like a hidden safe. Prying eyes see a gas tank. Nobody walks past a parked motorcycle and thinks, I'll bet you there's a $2,000 camera in there in the gas tank. Or as it turns out, a small orange cat. No, seriously, while I was filming this, I saw someone throw what looked like a bag of trash out of a car window. Only it wasn't trash, it was a little orange kitten, maybe 10 weeks old. I mean, who does that? And fox, coyotes, raptors, bobcats, and freezing temperatures? He didn't fit in my jacket, so Frunk to the rescue. Now, Honda says the Frunk is watertight, but is it airtight? I don't know, and I was not about to find out. So I stopped like every few minutes to check on him, and every time I did, I'd look in there and he was sitting in his little compartment, cool as a cucumber. So I was able to make it back down the canyon and back into the garage. Mrs. Canyon Chasers was at the ready with food and water. So while I would not recommend kitten transport as a standard Honda use case, it did allow for a cat to not only find his forever home, he's also the only cat I know who's actually a motorcycle riding canyon chaser. Anyway, back to the Frunk. So where does the actual gas go? It lives underneath the seat and you access it by opening up the back seat. And by moving those 3.7 gallons, Honda lowered the center of gravity even further. It's why this 500-pound machine feels so light between your legs. You aren't sloshing 10 pounds of liquid high up in the frame every time you lean into a corner or push it across the parking garage. Smart. So how far will this bike go on those 3.7 gallons of dinosaur remains? I mean, I've been riding this thing for the last 6 weeks or so. And can you guess what my mileage has been?
I can get 70 miles to the gallon on this hog.
No, I am not kidding. This thing is doing just that. And I didn't have to trade my dignity for a pull-start moped to get there. Seriously, I've been tracking the numbers using 88 octane ethanol-free fuel. And with the way I ride, which is, let's be honest, it's a little bit more spirited than a Honda engineer probably intended. All right, so I did 210 miles on 2.89 gallons. That's like 73 miles of the gallon. Who can complain about that? Now, to put that into perspective, if you bought a brand new RAV4 hybrid, the gold standard for sensible family transport, you'd be ecstatic to be hitting 40 miles per gallon. And I'm nearly doubling that efficiency, and I'm having significantly more fun. And thanks to the DCT, I'm probably working less in traffic. And then there's the DCT, the dual clutch transmission. And if you're like a veteran rider like me, you might scoff at what's an automatic. But sit in 45 minutes of stop and go traffic and tell me your left hand doesn't appreciate the brake. The DCT is not a scooter CVT. It's a computer-controlled manual that shifts faster than you can, keeping that car-derived engine right in its fuel-sipping sweet spot at all times. Now, I have an entire video dedicated to how Honda's dual-clutch transmission actually works, and I'll link to it at the end or up here in the corner. But I do have a confession to make. When I filmed that video, I didn't fully appreciate it yet. It wasn't until I started using this bike exactly how it was intended as a surgical tool for the daily commute that the DCT revealed its true superpower. Think about lane filtering. Here in Utah and in more states every year, we have the legal right to move to the front of the line at a red light. On a manual bike, that's a lot of brain cycles. You're feathering the clutch, managing the friction zone, blipping the throttle, and clicking between gears, all while navigating a narrow gap between expensive wing mirrors and distracted drivers. On the NC, that mental load mostly just vanishes. And because this bike handles the engagement perfectly every time, my brain is 100% free to focus on what actually matters. You know, like my path of travel, the gap in front of me, the behavior of the drivers around me. You don't really realize how much your safety budget is spent on the perfect shift until you don't have to do it anymore, especially in a high consequence environment like filtering through traffic. The DCT is more than just a luxury, it becomes a measurable safety advantage.
All right, so there are a few things about the NC that could be improved. First is you cannot click it into gear with the button as soon as the tires are moving. And that may sound like that's not a big deal, but I found myself several times, pointed downhill, I was going to do a U-turn, go back up. It's just part of what I do, millions of U-turns. And I rolled down the hill and I'm in the middle of the road, assuming I'm in gear, I roll on the throttle and nothing happens. So now I have to come to a complete stop in the middle of the road. Oh, hey, look, a turkey. Hey, go turkey. So I have to come to a complete stop in the middle of the road, click it into gear, and then I can roll out. And with what Honda's capable of with their computer engineering, there's got to be a way to allow you to click it into gear if you're under like a certain speed. Next is it has a whole bunch of power modes, which is great. It's super simple to switch between power modes. You have just one button here on the handlebar. This is mode. It's fantastic. Change modes on a snap. What I don't like is every time you turn off the key, it defaults back to the standard default eco mode. And on one hand, I get it. That's what this bike is really intended for, right? We're looking at that whole 70 mile per gallon thing. But come on, give me a little credit. Let me put it in the mode I want to be in. And then lastly, and this is my biggest complaint, and that's with the parking brake, right? DCT, you can't leave it in gear when you park. You have to set a parking brake. It'll roll away. This parking brake, while it looks really nice, it's aesthetically kind of tied into the design of the bike, looks great. To release it, it's a two-handed affair. Now, that may not sound like a big deal, but so many times I'm pointed downhill or I'm pointed uphill, and I have to take both hands off the handlebars to release the thing, taking my hand away from the front brake. I much prefer the simpler, much more analog parking brake system like on the NT1100, where it's just like a lever you flip, and you can do it while keeping your hand on the front brake.
Now, if you want to understand why the motorcycle savings myth is usually true, look no further than the service department. Most modern bikes, especially the high-strung European ones, are a little bit of a nightmare to work on, which is why they are so expensive to service. You're talking shim under bucket valves that require you to drain the coolant, remove the radiator, take the gas tank off, the whole air box, physically remove the camshafts just to change that clearance. It's a job that keeps professional mechanics in business and keeps your wallet empty. But we need to remember that this is effectively half of a car engine, and Honda built it with the sensible owner in mind. So first, we need to talk about the valves. Every motorcycle, with the exception of a few, needs valve adjustments. And unlike almost every other midsize twin on the market, the NC750 uses screw-and-locknut tappets. That's a good thing. There are no expensive shims to buy, no cams to pull, no math degree required. If you have a basic set of feeler gauges and a 10mm wrench, you can adjust these valves in your own garage in about 2 hours. It is quite literally the perfect first bike for someone who wants to learn how to maintain their own machine. And then there's the oil. Because this is the DCT model, there is a small pro tip that you need to know. It has 2 oil filters. You have the standard spin-on oil filter on the front of the engine, but there is a secondary internal element filter specifically for the dual clutch system. If you skip that $12 secondary filter, your shifting will eventually get clunky. But if you remember to change both, this transmission will likely outlast your house. It's literally just 2 screws to remove this whole cosmetic cowl. Your spin-on oil filter's right here, your coolant reservoir's right there. This little cover right here is the secondary oil filter for the DCT transmission. And to check your oil, you have a dipstick, just like in a car. So between the recommended 8,000 mile oil changes and the 16,000 mile valve checks that you can do yourself for the price of a 6-pack and some oil, the NC750 finally stops the bleeding. This isn't just a bike that saves you money at the pump, it's a bike that fires your mechanic. And for riders who need a reliable way to get around instead of staring at a bike on a service lift, that's a massive win.
And then let's talk about the chassis. To keep the price down, the utility of this bike is comfort. It's plush, it's soft, it's compliant. So that means if we try to run it really fast through a high-speed sweeper, you can overwhelm the damping and the spring race. Remember what this bike was designed for. Judging it purely on its performance is like criticizing a Swiss Army knife for not being a meat cleaver. It was not built to dominate track days. It was built to dominate your commute. And if you respect the limits of the bike and you ride the torque curve, it is remarkably planted and stable. But this is where I started thinking that maybe Honda missed the mark with this bike. If you go to Honda's website, the NC750X is listed in the adventure category. I mean, you have the upright seating position, it has an X in the name, it has the beak styling, but that's where I call foul. It has 17-inch cast wheels with very street-oriented tires. It only has about 7.5 inches of travel. This thing is not a specialist. It's a generalist. It's a very practical crossover. If I were to compare it to a car, it would be a Subaru Crosstrek. And that's when I started thinking that maybe there should be 2 versions of this bike. In addition to the X, there should be a GT version, don't you think?
Oh, I was so wrong for second guessing the people who figured out how to make a 94 Civic run on hope in a single quart of oil for 3 decades. They didn't miss the mark. They just hit it in the back of the catalog to see if I was paying attention. After digging into the Honda Dream Shop website, Honda did build that bike and hit it in the accessories. 3-piece lockable hard luggage, adjustable windscreen, heated grips, a center stand. It's all in there. When double duty as a sport tourer is considered, its understated brilliance starts shining. The weight, the engine, the fuel, all carried so low that it tips into corners with a neutral planted feel that hides its 500-pound curb weight. It's stable, it's predictable, and it's effortless. And it'll probably outlast your little brother's 94 Honda Civic that he's still driving. It's the ultimate commuter during the week and a capable long-distance traveler for the weekend. And in a world where budgets are being stretched to the breaking point and gas prices are clawing their way towards record highs, it's hard not to shout about getting 70 miles to the gallon on this hog. But the math doesn't lie. Most bikes are a luxury tax you pay for a weekend of fun. The NC is different. It's one of the only machines I found that might actually pay for itself on the Monday to Friday grind without asking you to give up the soul of riding a motorcycle. Thank you, Honda, for letting me spend the last few months on the NC750X, and thank you to all of our channel supporters here and on our new Patreon page for helping us keep the lights on and our content out from behind a paywall. Now, if you want to see exactly how that DCT works and why I've changed my mind about automatic motorcycles, watch this video next. I'll see you over there. Ride on and ride well.